Mama, calm down. Please, just calm down. What exactly happened? Okay, I'm listening. Tell me what happened.
My son, it was terrible. I saw them in my dream. They were chasing me with machetes.
Your uncle's wife, she wants me dead, Ebuka. Dead.
Mama, nobody wants you dead. It's just a dream.
Just a dream? Ebuka, I woke up with a terrible headache. My body is burning. I can barely stand. This is a spiritual attack. You know what your father's people are capable of. They never forgave me for selling that land.
All right, Mama. I'm coming to get you. Today, you stay with us here in Asaba until you feel better.
God bless you, my son. You're the only one I have. Hurry, please. I don't feel safe here.
Baby, what's wrong? What time is it?
It's 5:30. Go back to sleep.
Sleep? You're packing. Where are you going?
The village. It's Mama. She's not well.
Oh no. What happened? Is it serious?
She had a bad dream. Says she's been attacked spiritually. She sounded really scared, Titi. I have to bring her here.
Here? To stay with us?
Yes, here. Where else would she go? She's my mother.
I understand that, baby. But don't you think we should have discussed this first? Together?
Discuss what? My mother is in danger and you want me to hold a meeting about it?
That's not what I meant. You didn't even think to wake me up and tell me. I'm your wife.
Bae, she called me this morning. I'm telling you now. Just prepare for her arrival. I'll be back this evening.
Prepare for her arrival. Prepare for her arrival.
Girl, your mother-in-law is coming to stay with you. The same woman who said she'd rather die than see her son marry a Yoruba girl.
Chioma, don't remind me. My heart has been beating since morning. What am I going to do?
Well, what can you do? She's coming. Just be yourself. Be respectful. Keep your distance.
You know what scares me most? My work schedule. You know I do night shifts. Sometimes I come home at 7 a.m. exhausted. Sometimes Ebuka fixes his own breakfast. What will she think when she sees that?
She'll think her son married a lazy wife who can't cook for her husband.
Excuse me? Chioma, that's not funny.
I'm sorry. But seriously, Titi, you're overthinking this. Maybe she's changed. Maybe being sick made her realize family is important.
Or maybe she's coming to finally break up my marriage from the inside. You didn't see her face at our wedding, Chioma. She looked like she was attending a funeral. Well, we'll find out soon enough. Just pray, my sister, and learn how to cook that egusi soup properly this time. You're not serious. I've been practicing. I watched 5 YouTube videos yesterday.
5 videos and you still burned the soup last week?
Chioma, I will block you. Let me go and prepare this house. Wish me luck.
Good luck, Mrs. Ebuka. You'll need it.
As the afternoon sun cast long shadows through the windows, Titi moved frantically through the house, her movements quick and purposeful. Every surface received her attention. She wiped, she dusted, she arranged and rearranged. The house had to be perfect, flawless, beyond reproach. She entered the guest room carrying fresh sheets and towels, her arms full of pristine white linens that still smelled of the store. With careful precision, she made the bed, tucking hospital corners with the skill of someone who knew how details mattered. On the bedside table, she arranged a small vase of fresh flowers, adjusting the stems until they sat just right. Stepping back, she surveyed her work with critical eyes, mentally checking off every detail. The room was beautiful, welcoming, clean, perfect. Then her gaze caught something in the upper corner of the ceiling. A small cobweb, barely visible but undeniably there. She gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "How did I miss that?" she said aloud to the empty room, panic rising in her voice. "She'll think I'm a dirty housewife." She rushed from the room, returning moments later with a broom. Standing on her tiptoes, she swept the offending cobweb away, her heart still racing. As she finished, her phone rang, startling her. She glanced at the screen. Ebuka. "Hello, baby," she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. "Are you on your way back?" "Yes," came his voice through the phone, warm and reassuring. "We're about an hour away. How are things here?" Titi looked around the spotless guest room, at the fresh flowers, the crisp white sheets, every surface gleaming. "Everything is ready. I cleaned the guest room, changed the sheets, bought new towels." "Thank you, my love," Ebuka said, his voice softening. "I know this isn't easy for you." Something in his tone made her shoulders relax slightly. "Is she okay, your mother?" There was a pause before he answered. She seems better now, excited to see Asaba again. She says she hasn't been here in 3 years. Titi's anxiety returned in a rush. Ebuka, does she know I'll be here? I mean, is she okay with staying with us? Titi, his voice was firm now, leaving no room for doubt. You are my wife. This is our home. She knows that. Everything will be fine. Trust me. Okay, Titi replied, though her voice betrayed her uncertainty. I trust you. Drive safely. She ended the call and stood for a moment in the perfect guest room, then rushed toward the kitchen, her mind already racing ahead. 1 hour. I need to finish this egusi soup in 1 hour. God, please let it turn out well. The sound of a car engine grew louder, then stopped. Titi froze mid-stir, the wooden spoon suspended over the pot of egusi soup. Her heart hammered in her chest. This was it. She wiped her hands quickly on her apron, then caught sight of her reflection in the glass door of the microwave. She smoothed down her hair, adjusted her blouse, took a deep breath that did nothing to calm her nerves, and hurried to the front door. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the knob. Another deep breath. Then she opened it. Outside, the evening sun painted everything in golden light. Ebuka stood beside the car, his hand extended to help someone out. And then Titi saw her, Mrs. Dickey. At 58, she was a woman of dignified bearing, her stout frame draped in traditional Igbo attire, the rich colors of her wrapper and blouse vibrant even in the fading light. Her head tie was wrapped with the precision that spoke of decades of practice. She looked tired, but her eyes were alert, sharp, taking in every detail of the compound. Welcome, Mama, Titi said, stepping onto the porch, forcing her lips into what she hoped to look like a genuine smile. Good evening. The moment stretched impossibly long. Mrs. Dickey's eyes traveled over Titi from top to toe, assessing, measuring. Titi felt her smile begin to waver, felt the familiar sting of being found wanting. Then something unexpected happened. Mrs. Dickey's face transformed, breaking into a warm smile that reached her eyes. My daughter, she exclaimed, opening her arms wide. Come here. Titi stood frozen, unable to process what she was seeing. This couldn't be real. This wasn't the same woman who had looked at her with such cold disapproval at the wedding. Beside his mother, Ebuka looked equally stunned. Go on, Ebuka said gently, encouragingly. She wants to hug you. Moving as if in a dream, Titi approached. Mrs. Dickey pulled her into an embrace that was firm and real and warm. She patted Titi's back with maternal affection. Thank you for welcoming me into your home, Mrs. Dickey said, voice full of emotion. God bless you, my child. You're welcome, Mama, Titi stammered, still trying to understand what was happening. We're happy to have you. Mrs. Dickey released her but kept her hands on Titi's shoulders, looking into her face with a smile that seemed genuine. I can see you've been taking good care of my son. He looks healthy and happy. Mama, you haven't seen anything yet, Ebuka said, grinning now, his surprise giving way to pleasure. Wait till you taste her cooking. Titi, please, Ebuka said, embarrassment hitting her cheeks. She turned to Mrs. Dickey. Mama, let me take your bags to your room. You must be tired from the journey. Thank you, my dear, Mrs. Dickey said, handing her bags to Titi. Very thoughtful of you. Titi took the bags and headed inside, her mind already racing ahead. In the corridor, out of sight, she paused, setting the bags down for a moment. What just happened? She whispered to herself, looking back toward the door. Is this the same woman who said I trapped her son? Something is not right. But there was no time to puzzle it out. She picked up the bags and continued to the guest room, her heart still pounding with confusion and disbelief.
The dining table looked beautiful, Titi thought, even through the haze of her nervousness. She had set it with their good dishes, and now 3 plates sat waiting, each with a generous mound of pounded yam beside a bowl of rich green egusi soup. Steam rose from the food, carrying the aroma of carefully balanced spices. Titi stood beside the table, her hands clasped in front of her, her stomach too tight with anxiety to even think about eating. She heard footsteps, and then Ebuka and Mrs. Dickey entered the dining room. Ebuka inhaled deeply, dramatically. That smells amazing. Mama, I told you. My wife can cook. Mrs. Daiki settled into her chair, her expression pleasant but unreadable. We shall see, my son. We shall see. Titi's hands trembled slightly as she served them, carefully ladling soup, making sure each bowl had the right portions of fish and meat. They began to eat, and she took her seat but didn't touch her own food. Instead, she watched Mrs. Daiki with the intensity of a student waiting for exam results. Titi, you outdid yourself, Ebuka said, eating with obvious enjoyment. This is perfect. But Titi barely heard him. Her entire focus was on Mrs. Daiki, who was taking a small portion of soup on her spoon, holding it up to examine it in the light, then bringing it slowly to her mouth. The older woman chewed slowly, deliberately. The room fell into a silence so complete that Titi could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Under the table, she gripped her wrapper so tightly her knuckles ached. Please, God, she thought desperately, please let her like it, please. Mrs. Daiki paused mid-chew. She set down her spoon. Titi's eyes widened, panic flooding through her veins. Mama, is something wrong? The words tumbled out, her voice shaking. Is it too salty? Not salty enough? I can... Wrong? Mrs. Daiki interrupted, and her face broke into a huge smile. My daughter, this soup is extraordinary. Titi blinked, certain she had misheard. Extraordinary? Mrs. Daiki turned to Ebuka, gesturing at her bowl with evident pleasure. Ebuka, is this what you've been enjoying alone all this time, and you didn't tell me your wife could cook like this? Ebuka laughed, shaking his head. I tried to tell you, Mama, but you wouldn't listen. Mrs. Daiki took another spoonful, savoring it. The egusi is perfectly ground. The seasoning is balanced. The fish is tender. She looked directly at Titi now. Titi, where did you learn to cook Igbo food like this? Titi felt the tension in her shoulders beginning to ease, a genuine smile replacing her nervous one. I watched videos, Mama, and I practiced. I wanted to make you feel at home. Something shifted in Mrs. Daiki's expression. Her eyes grew softer, more vulnerable. You did this for me? Even after... She paused, the unspoken words hanging in the air between them. Even after everything? Mama, Titi said, her voice quiet but steady. You're my husband's mother. That makes you my mother too. Tears glistened in Mrs. Daiki's eyes. She reached across the table, taking Titi's hand in both of hers. Her grip was warm and firm. Thank you, my daughter, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for taking care of my son. I can see he made the right choice. Ebuka watched this exchange in silence, but Titi could see the emotion on his face, the way his eyes shone. Titi blinked rapidly, trying to hold back her own tears, overwhelmed by the unexpected tenderness of this moment she had dreaded for so long. The bedroom was dark, except for the faint glow of moonlight filtering through the curtains. Titi lay on her back, staring at the ceiling, her mind too active for sleep. Beside her, Ebuka shifted, turning to her. You're still awake? He asked softly. Ebuka, she whispered, not taking her eyes from the ceiling. I don't understand what is happening. What do you mean? She turned to face him, propping herself up on one elbow. Your mother. She hated me. At our wedding, she refused to pray for us. She told your relatives I was a gold digger. Now she's hugging me and complimenting my cooking. Ebuka chuckled. So, you're upset that she's being nice to you? I'm not upset, Titi said, sitting up fully now, frustration and confusion evident in her voice. I'm confused and worried. What if she's all an act? What if she's planning something? Ebuka reached for her, gently pulling her back down to the bed. Titi, you watch too many Nollywood movies. People can change. Maybe she realized she was wrong about you. In one day, Titi's skepticism was clear. People don't change that fast, Ebuka. Ebuka yawned, his voice becoming drowsy. Or maybe nearly dying in a spiritual attack puts things in perspective. Give her a chance. She's trying. Titi sighed, her worry not fully dissipated. I hope you're right, because tomorrow I have night shift. What will she think when she sees you making your own breakfast? Ebuka, she mumbled, already half asleep. She'll think I'm a modern man with a hard-working wife. Stop worrying, go to sleep. He drifted off, his breathing becoming slow and even. But Titi lay awake in the darkness, her eyes wide open, staring into the darkness, her mind spinning with questions that had no answers. At 5:30 in the morning, the house was still draped in pre-dawn darkness. Titi moved through the kitchen as quietly as possible, already dressed in her nurse's uniform. She tried to minimize every sound, setting pots down gently, opening cabinets with care, stirring softly. She was making a quick breakfast for Ebuka before heading for the hospital for her night shift. Suddenly, the kitchen light blazed on. Titi spun around, her hand flying to her chest, to find Mrs. Daike standing in the doorway in her nightgown. "Mama," she gasped, her heart racing from the surprise. "You scared me. I'm sorry, did I wake you?" "No, my dear," Mrs. Daike said, walking into the kitchen with the ease of movement of someone fully alert despite the early hour. "I'm an early riser. What are you doing up at this time?" "I have to leave for work soon. I was just making breakfast for Ebuka before I go." Without warning, Mrs. Daike reached out and took the wooden spoon from Titi. "My dear, go and get ready for work. I will handle this." "But, Mama, you just arrived yesterday. You need to rest. The journey was long and—" "Rest?" Mrs. Daike waved her off with a dismissive gesture that was both firm and kind. "Rest? I've rested enough. Go. Your patients are waking. I will take care of my son's breakfast." "Are you sure, Mama?" "Very sure," Mrs. Daike said, her tone brooking no argument but warm with affection. "Now go before you're late." Titi nodded slowly, picked up her bag from the counter and headed for the door. But she couldn't help pausing in the doorway, looking back at Mrs. Daike, who was already bustling around the kitchen with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. "Thank you, Mama," she said softly. Mrs. Daike looked up, her smile warm in the harsh kitchen light. "It's nothing, my daughter. Go well." The hospital corridor was quiet in the late hours, the fluorescent lights creating their eternal artificial day. At the nurse's station, Titi sat with her colleague, Nurse Blessing, surrounded by charts and the soft beeping of distant monitors. Titi rubbed her temples, trying to ease the tension headache that had been building all shift. Blessing glanced over at her, concern crossing her face. "Titi, you look stressed. Is everything okay?" Titi let out a long breath. "My mother-in-law moved in with us." Blessing's eyes widened. "The one who didn't support your marriage?" "That's the one," Titi confirmed with a nod. Blessing grimaced sympathetically. Sorry, how is it going?" "That's the problem," Titi said, and there was genuine confusion in her voice. "It's going too well. She's being too nice, too understanding, too helpful." To Titi's surprise, Blessing laughed. "And that's a problem. Titi, some people pray for nice mothers-in-law." Titi leaned in closer, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "Blessing, you don't understand. This morning, she woke up early to make Ebuka's breakfast so I could focus on getting ready for work. She didn't complain. She didn't make any snide remarks. She just helped." Blessing shrugged, her expression pragmatic. "Maybe she's changed. Maybe she realized you are good for her son." "Or maybe," Titi countered, her doubt evident, "she's planning something big, building my trust before she strikes." Blessing shook her head, reaching out to pat Titi's arm. "You need to relax. Not every mother-in-law is a villain. Give her time. You might be surprised." Titi wanted to believe her. She really did. But as she returned to her charts, she couldn't quite shake the feeling that this was all too good to be true. That somewhere, somehow, there had to be a catch. Years of expecting rejection didn't disappear in a day, no matter how kind someone suddenly became. But a small part of her, a part she was almost afraid to acknowledge, whispered a different possibility. That maybe, just maybe, Blessing was right. 3 weeks had passed like a dream, or perhaps more accurately, like waking from a nightmare into unexpected peace. Titi pushed through the front door, her body heavy with the exhaustion that came from a particularly brutal morning shift at the hospital. Her scrubs felt damp with sweat, her feet ached, and all she wanted was a shower and her bed. But as she stepped into the living room, she stopped short, taking in the scene before her. The house was immaculate, not just clean, but spotless in a way that spoke of care and attention to detail. The tile floors gleamed, every surface was dust-free. And there, on the sofa, sat Mrs. Dike, methodically folding laundry while a gospel program played on the television, filling the room with harmonious voices singing praise. The aroma hit Titi next, the rich, unmistakable scent of fresh soup simmering in the kitchen. Her stomach, which she had barely had time to think about all shift, suddenly reminded her she was hungry. "Mama," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "Good afternoon. You didn't have to do all this." Mrs. Dike looked up from the white towel she was folding, her face breaking into a warm smile. "Welcome home, my daughter. How was work?" Titi dropped her bag onto a nearby chair, her shoulders sagging with relief at being home. "Exhausting. We had 3 emergency cases. I barely sat down." Mrs. Dike stood immediately, concern replacing her smile. "Hey, yeah, sorry, oh. Go and shower. I made oha soup. Your favorite, not so?" Titi felt something catch in her throat. "Mama, you remembered?" "Of course I remembered," Mrs. Dike said warmly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "You mentioned it 2 weeks ago. Go and freshen up. When you come out, food will be ready." Titi headed toward her bedroom, but she couldn't help shaking her head in amazement as she walked. 2 weeks ago, a casual comment made in passing, and Mrs. Dike had remembered, had cared enough to remember, had taken the time to prepare it. The world, Titi thought as she reached for her towel, was full of surprises. The dining room was filled with the comfortable sounds of a family meal. The clink of spoons against bowls, the satisfied murmurs of people enjoying good food, the easy silence that comes when people are content in each other's company. Ebuka took another spoon of soup, savoring it with obvious pleasure. "Mama, this oha soup is exactly how I remembered it from childhood. Nobody makes it like you." Mrs. Dike looked pleased, but she turned her smile toward Titi. "Titi, I want to ask you something." Titi felt herself tense slightly, old habits dying hard. Her hand paused mid-reach for her glass. "Yes, Mama." Mrs. Dike paused, and in that moment, Titi's mind raced through a dozen possibilities, each more concerning than the last. Then, "This laundry service you people use, do they come every week?" The tension drained from Titi's body so quickly she almost laughed with relief. "Yes, Mama, every Saturday morning." "I see," Mrs. Dike said thoughtfully, taking another bite of her food. "But some of Ebuka's native attire, they don't wash it properly. The starch is never right." Immediately, defensiveness rose in Titi's chest. "Mama, I can do it myself. I just thought with my work schedule." "No, my dear," Mrs. Dike interrupted gently, raising her hand. "You misunderstand. I'm not complaining. I'm offering to help. I know how to starch those clothes the traditional way. Let me handle that, so you can rest when you come back from work." Titi felt her eyes begin to sting with unexpected emotion. "Mama, you're already doing so much. Cooking, cleaning, taking care of everything. I feel like I'm not doing my duty as a wife." Mrs. Dike reached across the table, taking Titi's hand in both of hers. Her grip was warm and firm, and when she spoke, her voice was filled with conviction. "My daughter, your duty is to save lives at that hospital. Your duty is to come home safely to your husband. Everything else we can share. That's what family does." Tears filled Titi's eyes, spilling over before she could stop them. Across the table, Ebuka was watching with a smile that spoke of deep satisfaction, of seeing 2 of the most important women in his life finally finding their way to each other. "Mama," Ebuka said, his tone teasing but his eyes warm, "at this rate, Titi will never let you go back to the village." Mrs. Dike laughed, squeezing Titi's hand once more before releasing it. "Who said I'm going back?" Saturday morning sunlight streamed through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold. Gospel music played softly from a small speaker, the familiar melodies creating a peaceful backdrop. On the floor, between them, A large tray held an array of vegetables waiting to be prepared. Green ugu leaves, yellow onions, red peppers, all the makings of a proper meal. Titi and Mrs. Daike sat cross-legged on opposite sides of the tray, their hands moving in rhythm as they sliced and sorted. It had become their routine these Saturday mornings, preparing food together while the house was quiet and the day stretched out before them. "You know, Titi," Mrs. Daike said, her hands continuing their work with practiced ease. "When Ebuka first told me he wanted to marry you, I was very upset." Titi's hands froze mid-slice. She looked up, uncertain where this was going, but knowing somehow that it was important. "I know, Mama," she said quietly. Mrs. Daike didn't stop cutting, but her movement had grown heavier, weighted with memory. "I said terrible things. I told him he was throwing away his future, that you are not one of us." "Mama," Titi said, uncomfort making her voice tight, "we don't have to talk about this." "No, we do," Mrs. Daike said firmly, finally setting down her knife and looking directly at Titi. "I need to say this. I was wrong, Titi. Very wrong." Titi saw the tears forming in her mother-in-law's eyes and felt her own throat constrict in response. "I was so focused on tribe, on tradition, on what people would say, that I almost made my son lose the best thing that ever happened to him. When I was in that village thinking I was going to die, you know what I realized?" "What, Mama?" Titi asked softly. Mrs. Daike wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, but the tears kept coming. "That I had been a fool. My son called me every day to check on me, but it was you who made sure he never forgot. You who reminded him to send me money. You who cooked the food he brought to me during Christmas. It was you all along, and I was too blind to see it." "Mama." Titi's own tears were falling now, dropping onto the vegetables between them. Mrs. Daike reached across the tray, taking both Titi's hands in hers, gripping them tightly. "I came here planning to find fault, to prove I was right about you. But every day you proved me wrong. Your kindness, your respect, the way you care for my son. Titi, please forgive me." "There's nothing to forgive, Mama," Titi said, through her tears, her voice breaking. "You are here now, that's all that matters." They came together over the forgotten vegetables, embracing with the fierce emotion of two women who had found in each other something they hadn't known they needed. They cried together, releasing years of hurt and misunderstanding, washing it all away in this moment of complete honesty. "Are you people cutting onions or ugu?" They broke apart at the sound of Ebuka's voice, finding him standing in the doorway with a teasing smile. They laughed through their tears, the sound bright and free and full of joy. The pregnancy test trembled in Titi's hands as she stared at it, her eyes fixed on the two clear pink lines that had appeared in the little window. 2 lines, positive, pregnant. Her hand flew to her mouth, muffling a gasp that escaped her lips. For a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't think, could only stare at those 2 lines as if they might disappear if she looked away. Then reality crashed over her in a wave of pure joy, and she was running, bursting out of the bathroom with the test still clutched in her shaking hand. "Ebuka! Ebuka!" she called, her voice high with excitement. She found him in the bedroom, sitting on the bed with his laptop. He jumped up at her entrance, his face immediately showing alarm. What happened?" "Look!" She thrust the test toward him, unable to form any more coherent words. He stared at it, his eyes moving from the test to Titi's face and back. I watched as understanding dawned, watched as his expression transformed into the biggest smile I had ever seen. "We're having a baby!" he shouted, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. "We're having a baby!" Their celebration was interrupted by the sound of rushing footsteps, and then Mrs. Daike burst through the door, worry written across her face. "What is all this noise? Is everything—" She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes falling on the pregnancy test in Ebuka's hand. For a heartbeat, the room was silent. Then Mrs. Daike's hands flew up in the air, her face radiating pure joy. Ah, Jesus, my grandchild is coming. All three came together in an embrace, jumping and laughing, their voices blending in a chorus of celebration. In that moment, Titi thought, they weren't just a collection of individuals anymore. They were a family. Titi reached up toward the high shelf where the pot she needed sat just out of easy reach. Her pregnant belly, now showing clearly at 3 months, made the stretch more awkward than it would have been before. She had barely touched the pot when she heard quick footsteps behind her, and then Mrs. Daike was there, gently but firmly moving her aside. "Titi," Mrs. Daike scolded, though her tone carried more concern than anger. "Titi, what did I tell you? No stretching, no heavy lifting, no stress." Titi couldn't help but laugh. "Mama, I'm pregnant, not disabled. It's just a small pot." Mrs. Daike took the pot down with ease, holding it as she turned to face Titi with an expression that broke no argument. "Small pot today, heavy pot tomorrow. Sit down. What do you want to cook? I will do it." "But Mama," Titi protested, even as she recognized the futility of arguing. "I already cooked breakfast and cleaned the whole house. I can't just sit and watch you do everything." Mrs. Daike pointed at the kitchen chair with the authority of a general commanding troops. "Sit down. What you want to give me my grandchild, Abby? Then sit and rest. Don't stress yourself too much so you can give me plenty grandchildren." They both laughed at that, the tension breaking. It was then that Ebuka walked in, taking in the scene with the wary expression of someone who had witnessed this argument many times before. "Don't argue with her," Titi told him. "I've been trying for weeks. She doesn't listen." Titi sat reluctantly, one hand resting on her belly. "This woman has spoilt me, oh. I don't even know how to be a housewife anymore." Mrs. Daike was already at the stove, mixing ingredients with practiced efficiency. "Nonsense. You're a nurse, a wife, and soon a mother. You are doing 3 jobs. Me, I'm retired. Let me be useful." Ebuka grinned at Titi, speaking in a stage whisper that was clearly meant to be overheard. "You better enjoy it all. Once the baby comes, she'll be even worse." The wooden spoon came out of nowhere, playfully swatting Ebuka's hand as he tried to steal a piece of meat. "Worse? Is that how you talk about your mother?" Ebuka dodged, laughing. "Thief, wait for the food to be ready. You people are all the same, just like your father." "But you loved my father," Ebuka said, his grin softening into something more tender. "Yes, I did. God rest his soul." Night had settled over the house, bringing with it a peaceful quiet. In the bedroom, Titi shifted in bed for what felt like the 100th time, trying to find a comfortable position. At 5 months pregnant, comfort was becoming increasingly elusive. Ebuka entered carrying a glass of water and her prenatal vitamins, settling onto the edge of the bed beside her. "Here, Mama said you haven't taken your vitamins today." Titi took them with a mixture of gratitude and exasperation. "Your mother is monitoring my vitamin intake now?" Ebuka laughed, setting the glass on the bedside table, before beginning to massage her swollen feet. "She is monitoring everything. This morning, she asked me if I was giving you enough foot massages." "And what did I say?" Titi asked, giggling. "I said yes, Mama," Ebuka replied, his hands working gently on her aching feet. "What else could I say? The woman has spies everywhere." Titi laughed, but her expression became more serious, more thoughtful. "Ebuka, I was so wrong about her." He looked up from his massage. "Mama?" She nodded, her eyes beginning to glisten with emotion. "When you first brought her here, I was terrified. I thought she was coming to break us apart, to make my life miserable." "And instead," he prompted gently. "Instead," Titi said, her voice thick with feeling. "Instead, she became the mother I never had. She supports me, encourages me, takes care of me. Ebuka, I'm actually jealous that she's your mother and not mine." Ebuka smiled, though his expression was playfully wounded. "Well, she's definitely more interested in you these days. Yesterday, I asked her to iron my shirt, and she said, ask your wife. I reminded her you are pregnant, and she said, oh, sorry, iron it yourself then. Titi laughed so hard she had to hold her belly, the sound filling the room with joy. She didn't, she gasped between laughs. She did, Ebuka insisted, her mock hurt giving way to genuine amusement. I've been replaced by my own child, who isn't even born yet. Titi pulled him closer, wrapping her arms around him. You poor thing. But Ebuka's expression grew serious, his voice becoming sincere. But I'm glad, Titi. I'm glad she came. I'm glad she got to know you. I'm glad she saw what I saw from the beginning. What did you see? Titi asked softly. He touched her face with gentle reverence. That tribe doesn't matter. That love is bigger than tradition. That you are the only woman I could ever build a life with. They kissed, tender and full of promise. And then from outside the door came Mrs. Daike's voice. Ebuka, don't stress your wife. She needs to sleep. They broke apart, laughing despite themselves. Yes, Mama, Ebuka called out. Titi whispered, her eyes twinkling. Spies everywhere, indeed. The doctor's office was cool and clinical, the walls covered with charts about pregnancy and infant care. Dr. Adeyemi sat behind her desk, Titi's file open before her, while Titi and Mrs. Daike occupied the chairs across from her. Dr. Adeyemi looked up with a smile. Everything looks perfect, Titi. The baby is healthy, your blood pressure is good, you are doing great. Mrs. Daike leaned forward with unmistakable pride. That's because I don't allow her stress herself. I monitor her food, her rest, everything. The doctor's smile widened as she looked at Mrs. Daike. Well, keep doing what you are doing. She's one of my healthiest pregnant patients. Titi turned to Mrs. Daike with a grin. See, Mama, your pampering is working. As it should, said Mrs. Daike with satisfaction. This is my first grandchild. No mistakes allowed. The doctor pulled out a printout from the file. Here's your ultrasound. Would you like to know the gender? Yes! Both women responded in perfect unison, then looked at each other and burst into laughter. The doctor grinned at their enthusiasm. It's a boy. Mrs. Daike jumped from her chair as if propelled by pure joy. A boy! Ebuka will have a son! Thank you, Jesus! She pulled Titi into a tight embrace, and Titi felt the older woman trembling with emotion. You are giving us a son, Titi. You are giving us an heir. How can I ever thank you? Mama, Titi said through her own happy tears, it's your grandson. You don't have to thank me. Mrs. Daike pulled back just enough to wipe the tears from both her faces, her touch gentle and maternal. Wait until Ebuka hears. He'll probably faint. The living room had become command central for baby preparations. Shopping lists covered the coffee table, baby catalogs lay open on every surface, and Titi, Ebuka, and Mrs. Daike sat together in the midst of it all, planning for the arrival that was now just 2 months away. Mrs. Daike held a pen poised over a list, her expression serious as she marked items. We need diapers, baby clothes, bottles, crib. Ebuka interrupted, his tone patient but slightly exasperated. Mama, we have time. The baby isn't coming for 2 more months. Mrs. Daike turned to him with a stern look. 2 months is nothing. We must be prepared. What if he comes early? Titi couldn't help but be amused. We, Mama, you keep saying we like you are the one giving birth. Mrs. Daike's expression became completely serious. I'm giving birth with you, in spirit, in prayer, in preparation. We are in this together. Titi looked from Ebuka to Mrs. Daike and felt her eyes begin to fill with tears again. Happy tears this time, grateful tears. Thank you, Mama, for accepting me, for loving me, for being here. Mrs. Daike took her hand, squeezing it gently. No, my daughter, thank you. Thank you for teaching an old woman that love has no tribe. Thank you for making my son happy. Thank you for this family. The moment hung there, perfect and complete, until Ebuka broke it with his characteristic humor. Can we all stop crying and finish this shopping list? At this rate, the baby will arrive and find us all dehydrated from tears. They laughed together, Titi, Ebuka, and Mrs. Daike, the sound filling the room and spilling out into the house beyond. 3 people from different backgrounds, different experiences, different perspectives, united now by something stronger than tradition, more powerful than prejudice. United by love, united by family. And in that moment, sitting together in the afternoon light with baby supplies scattered around them and laughter echoing off the walls, they were complete.